Greetings, loyalists, heretics, xenos, and other assorted entities of Warhammer 40k. This is Arndelft, and today I'm just talking a little Eternal Crusade. Now, Eternal Crusade was something I invested in a long time back. I became a founder back in those first initial concept years when all Eternal Crusade was a website that you got to see mostly just them talking about the game. You didn't even get to see any real in-game footage or anything like that, and I followed it rather closely for a long time, for like, I think well over a year, and I even got so excited for the game that I not only bought a Founders Pack for myself, but I bought one for a friend of mine, investing about $80 into the game before it was even out. And honestly, just been waiting around ever since for it to actually really release. And I got into a couple of the earlier alpha and, for that matter, beta games, and it was so glitchy back then, I couldn't even really get any workability out of it. Though, truth be told, I had an older system in those days, so I couldn't run it nearly as well. So I didn't get, honestly, a very good feel for the game. And as I continued to, wait around whatnot, the friend that I bought the game for, he would try it out here and there because he honestly had a far better system than I did, and he would give me updates on when they were really tuning the system and whatnot. But his dissatisfaction with the game mounted and mounted and mounted. And he similarly is also a Warhammer 40k fan, he being Chaos player and me being a Space Marine player. Now, recently I came across the question, now that, Eternal Crusade has been released and you can buy it for its upfront cost of $50, in at least America. Not sure how much it is in pounds, but, $50. Is it worth buying? No. In my opinion, it is not remotely worth buying. Mind you, I wish I could say yes, because I've been playing Eternal Crusade for about the last 2 months, since about 2 weeks ago. I kind of just hit a wall 2 weeks ago and just stopped playing it. But I played it consistently every day for about 2 months after they did some serious work on it and tuning and whatnot and glitches. And it was also recently after I'd seriously upgraded my system to the point where I could play it far less glitchy. And I enjoyed the game during some points, like a lot, but it was especially difficult at first because even though technically speaking I'd played it here and there and I wasn't a veteran player, but I wasn't brand new, I felt new stepping back into it. It has no skill system at all. I stepped in there and consistently was killed again and again and again. Had no idea how I'd been killed. No real concept of what was doing it. And some of the glitches that were coming up was I would get ran over by a vehicle, but instead of showing the vehicle, it showed a melee weapon. I was like, what? I know what killed me though. Or I would get sniped from I don't know where, just insta-killed, and it would show a melee weapon. So I'm picturing in my head somebody throwing this big old freaking giant axe at me from across the map and killing me with that, because, that makes sense. And constant things like that. Frustrating. I could not understand for the life of me what kept killing me. And when I eventually figured out, it's a plasma cannon, somebody overcharged and shot at you, I started looking for those giant flying plasma balls to try and avoid. Or they're like, it's that little, blinking red laser light that's following you around. Somebody sniped you with a las cannon. I'm like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense, because I was wondering what that blinky red light was that was following me around. Thought I was back in Halo with the Spartan laser, which it makes absolutely no sense at all in my mind to have a giant blinky laser on the end of a weapon like that, nor a charge-up sequence. I mean, literally, they seem to rip off the Spartan laser directly for the las cannon with both the charge up sequence and the stinking laser, except they put a bigger nerf on the las cannon in the fact that it actually has to have directly a target to be locked onto, which is both weak in the fact that, you know, they're holding your hand like, oh, don't worry, you have a lesser chance of just wasting your shot, but also for veteran pro players who don't need or want their hands held, it's like, oh, I know that vehicle's about to pop out, but even though I know it's about to pop out, I can't charge it up and then fire it right when I believe they're going to come out. No, I have to wait for it to actually stick its head out or whatever, or if they're targeting a player, blah, blah, blah. They can't do that. What is wrong with why'd you do that to the las cannon? Nowhere anywhere did I even hear of a charge-up sequence. Sure, I heard of a cooldown sequence, but you have that too. So, one, it has to charge, and then 2, it has to cool down. Why? You already have a great deal of lore to base this off of, and nowhere have I ever heard of anything remotely like that. Yeah, you guys really need to confer with the Mechanicus on this bit. But as I was saying, no skill base. Like, you walk in and you're getting hit with all these glitches, for one. And 2, the skill player base, you're being thrown in with veterans as a greenie, as a noob from the get-go. People who not only know what the frag they're doing, but they have seriously great gear that you can't even begin to match right now. And they have elite class, by the way. Oh, they have that too. Sure, they can only use like 2 or 3 per game, but they have that too. And by the way, I believe that the elite class right now is completely broken as well, that you can pump out 2 or 3 per game. Okay, not completely broken. I just don't like it. I would suggest that they would replace it with something like a cooldown sequence, where when you used it and then you died, you had a certain amount of time for it cooled down. You might get trinkets or better gear that allow that cooldown to be smaller or whatever, but that would be the system that I personally would suggest, and in my opinion would feel better. But yeah, as I said, just my opinion on that. Now, as per the game in its quality, as I said, a lot of glitches, and I could spend all day whinging about them. I'll touch on just a few, though. I already talked on the bit where it tells you what you were killed by, and 90% of the time, there's no way I was killed by the weapon it's telling me at all. Like, there's no way that happens. Like, unless you've enabled, without me being able to do it at least, chucking melee weapons around. There was no way I was killed by a melee weapon in that scenario. Now, with the amount of glitches the game is currently having, I honestly feel like it's still back in beta, or for that matter, alpha. I do not feel like this game is ready to be released whatsoever. I feel that it was released because the developers were feeling themselves stalling and choking on where the game is right now, and were a little bit desperate to hopefully have more people getting into the game. That's kind of why I feel that they did what they did. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm choking on glitches here in this game. And a lot of the people I'm talking to, and they're talking to me that I'm chatting to in the game, feel the exact same way. Okay. Now, truth be told, some people bring up the fact that for the skill player base, that it doesn't have enough players to successfully pull that option off. My counter argument is, how do you ever expect to get that many players unless you put in one? Because the moment a brand new player comes in, they're getting curb stomped. Now me, I just gritted my teeth and pushed myself through it, despite getting killed so many times in countless games that I was lucky to get an assist. Like, horribly lucky just to get an assist. In other words, I was making next to none of the in-game currency. And that was beyond screaming tear your hair out. And as you can see, all my hair is gone. So, you know, in case anybody's wondering where it all went. It's screaming tear your hair out to the point where you just want to maddeningly cry. And, oh, you need to have a skill player base, especially for your brand new players. The skill training area where you have a training area, that's great. I love the fact that you have that. But that is not actual combat. You need something for actual combat. You do. Like, desperately. For the new players who come in. Because that training area does not simulate the nitty-gritty grinder they're getting thrown into. They need to be able to actually play with other players, at least somewhere near their player base. At least remotely. That would be extremely helpful. And that would, as I said, helpful towards building up a bigger player base. Now, truth be told, the second biggest issue that I have come across in this game, I have not been able to find a way of reporting negative, or for that matter, venomous, completely venomous players in Eternal Crusade. I have encountered some of the worst trolls that I have encountered in any game. And I get around a little bit, and that's honestly saying something. I mean, I play a lot of MOBAs. You get some of the worst players ever in those games, but there's reporting systems in there. So when they really go off the hinges, you can at least report them. And, well, frag. At least that's something. Hopefully the developers actually have a punishment method in place. And a lot of the older MOBAs, they do. But in this game, correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't have one. At least not one I've been able to find, and I've looked. So maybe I've been looking in the wrong places, but I've been looking and looking, and I can't find one. And if there isn't actually one, which I suspect very much to be the case, it would make sense why this game seems to have some seriously horrific trolls in it. Like, horrifying. Because when you have no threat of punishment, oh, well, you'll do just about anything you freaking want to. I mean, they act like cultists, chaos cultists, who have just barely risen up to the rank of a cultist, been accepted in the group, and are, you know, the fragging new guys who feel like, oh, this is great. And they are just like freaks to everybody. You know, that's before they actually get a taste of combat and realize, oh, you're the cannon fodder. And they're like, oh, so life actually sucks, and I should sober up and realize that I'm not all that, and that I need to actually treat my buddies over here with respect before they shank me. Oh. Okay. You know, they act like that. And Eternal Crusade, especially for the rookies who come in and get curb stomped, and then have the enemy rub it in their faces horrifically. Now, mind you, there's actually a lot of really good players in Eternal Crusade, especially the people who want it to grow. There's a lot of them. But for every 20 of them, it only takes one really, really negative one, and that one very bad experience, especially in the beginning phases of the game, for them to, like, say, screw this. And this is kind of, you know, there was one particular guy who, you know, and I'm going to edit this, said, basically, think, Terra, Steam has a refund policy. I laughed out loud while cringing. Because on one hand, I completely understood his pain. Because this was a rookie who just barely stepped into the game and had a horrifying experience. I was like, refund. Like, right there. Like, he was done that fast. There was no question in his mind. He was not going to tolerate that crap. So, he immediately went and started processing his refund to get his money back for a game that is not ready to be where it is currently at. And I cringed because we need more players in this game. We need a bigger player base so that, one, you know, hopefully the developers can be getting more money and actually funding, and hopefully I don't know where all their funding's been going, because I, know they have quite a bit by now. They should be able to have smoothed out all the immense amount of glitches the game currently has, but, more funding, hopefully, blessings of the Omnissiah, we can actually get this done. But currently stalling on that. And I'm not, back to square one. I cringed. The guy was leaving. One less player. Probably would never come back unless maybe he saw a very positive review on the game, or these bugs and glitches, whatnot being fixed, etc. And it's not uncommon. It is not uncommon to have rookie players come in and either get treated horribly or experience the confounding glitches and get pushed right back out. And for that matter, never come back. It's everything I can do to get my partner XL Pudding to stay in the game. I mean, I can get him to play every once in a while, but that's about it. Because I cannot consistently get him to play. It's just every single time, it's this punishing rhetoric where he's being pushed into games where no one's actually near his skill level, where he's getting killed before he even understands what's really going on. He doesn't understand how he got killed or anything like that. He doesn't want to push through the game like I did, like literally grinding, where there are whole days where I consistently have nothing but maddeningly horrifying games. Even today, even after, stopped playing about 2 weeks ago, but, for those 2 months, consistently throughout that, there were those days where I would just have those irrationally frustrating games repeatedly. And for him, the game's not worth it to him to do that. One, he didn't buy it himself. Two, while he's a big fan of Warhammer 40k, he just doesn't feel like putting that much into it when he feels the game isn't actually ready. He feels like he's literally grinding for nothing. And after all this time, after all the grinding that I did, I myself feel that didn't really go anywhere. Sure, I finally unlocked an elite, which took all the way up to level 5 with Chaos, which is what I decided to go with in the end, because I thought their advancements were a little bit more interesting than the regular Space Marine, even though normally I'm a Space Marine player, and I was finally unlocked in Elites and got to look over that. You only get to play with 2 of them, but hey, you get to have more of their system. By the way, I actually really do like the system that they have currently for LP loadout points and all that, loading things up, how much you can fit in there. It's a decently squared off balancing system for how much you can equip onto any one guy. And so far, I actually consistently like it. It's honestly a lot of fun. And the Elite allows you to have 400 more LP. And that's a little bit of a big deal. Especially for Chaos putting marks on them. The whole, I'm running Zinch right now, and he's got this big old, giant sphere, warp portal above his head. And that alone is also a really cool, aesthetically speaking. I'm loving that. And without getting into yet more glitches, it's a pretty squared off system. Now, what I want from them right now, a balanced skill system and a reporting system. And I would love it if they would at least put in those two. Because that would cut down on the trolls, and that would up new players coming in. Hopefully significantly. It would start creating some serious positivity that the game really needs right now. Now, diagnosis for the game itself. I believe that Eternal Crusade is currently 99% of Warhammer 40k games circling the hole, where they will fall into a spinning abyss and be one of those either games that completely hit rock bottom and completely die. In other words, get X'd out, canceled, boom, gone. Like history, you'll never hear from it again. It'll just be one of those disasters you hear about sometimes, like a certain MMORPG we won't mention. or it'll just be one of those games that goes down to a ridiculously low price or stays at a ridiculously high price that pretty much nobody ever really plays, barely gets maintained, if at all, and it's just a joke for all intents and purposes. So, wrap that up. That is where I currently think it's going. It's not going in yet, but it's circling. Now, how to avoid it actually going in? Simple. Developers, turn around. Stop trying to release new content. As great as new content is, I know they're working on Terminators and like Wraithguard right now, and I'm very excited for that. But when it comes, and of course the Mega Knobs, you have so many glitches in your backyard, and many of them seem to actually be growing, and it's hindering, hampering, and killing a growing player base. You need to address this. You need to turn around and refocus. You need to actually fix the glitches, smooth out the game, get this game back on its feet again, running smoothly. This is my recommendation and plea. This is my plea with you. Please do this. Because I'm a dedicated Warhammer 40k fan, and I would love to see a 40k game. Not that I've got anything against fantasy, but I love 40k. I love the sci-fi. I would love to see one of their games be immensely successful, and Eternal Crusade has so much potential. Oh, I cannot emphasize the amount of potential that this game does have. If you can please smooth out this game, fix all these glitches, listen to your players, and actually get this ball rolling, it would do wonders. And then, once you get that done, then turn around, focus on the new content, start hammering that out. That'd be beautiful. And this is honestly my opinion on the matter. If you continue to just focus on releasing new content so strongly, I know you're working on the glitches, but you need to be working on them a lot harder. You cannot fight two battles at the same time. You need to fight one or the other. In any case, this is my opinion on the matter. I would absolutely love to hear people's feedback. That's, of course, what the comment section below is for. Look forward to hearing from anyone who has anything to say on the matter. And, in any case, if you like this video, go and give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, go and give it a thumbs down. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of content, subscribe. In any case, don't get into too much trouble, or do. It's always up to you. Toodles.